The massive creature stretched its ancient wings across the rocky outcrop, scales shimmering like black diamonds in the pale morning light. Zethrak had lived for 3,000 years, watching civilizations rise and fall across the galaxy. Dragons were observers by nature, bound by cosmic law to witness but never interfere in the affairs of lesser species. The human colony ship had crashed on his world 6 months ago. Zethrak had watched with mild curiosity as the survivors built their small settlement in the valley below his mountain lair. Humans were fascinating creatures, so short-lived yet so determined. They reminded him of the fire beetles that lived for only a day, but burned brightest in their final hours. The colony consisted of 47 humans. Zethrak knew each of them by sight, having observed their daily routines with the patience only immortals possessed. There was Marcus, the leader who carried the weight of responsibility on his shoulders; Sarah, the doctor who worked tirelessly to heal the injured; old Henrik, who told stories to the children each night around the fire; and then there was Emma, the 12-year-old girl with bright red hair and freckles scattered across her nose like tiny stars. She was different from the others. While the adults worked with grim determination to survive, Emma still found wonder in small things. She collected pretty stones, named the local wildlife, and sang songs that drifted up to Zethrak's cave on the evening wind. The dragon found himself looking forward to her daily adventures. She would climb the lower slopes of his mountain, always stopping at the same boulder to eat her lunch and sketch in her notebook. She drew everything: flowers, insects, rock formations, and sometimes even crude drawings of what she imagined a dragon might look like. If only she knew how close she came to the truth. Today felt different. Zethrak's ancient senses detected tension in the colony below. The humans moved with urgency, their voices carrying sharp notes of fear. Through his enhanced hearing, he caught fragments of conversation about raiders approaching from the east. The Vex were a plague upon the galaxy. These reptilian slavers traveled in small bands, preying on isolated colonies and weak settlements. They took what they wanted and destroyed what they couldn't use. Zethrak had encountered them before in his travels across the stars. They were cruel creatures who found pleasure in causing pain. The dragon watched as the colonists prepared their defenses. They had few weapons, mostly mining tools and construction equipment repurposed for protection. Marcus organized the adults into defensive positions while Sarah gathered the children in the central building. Emma helped carry supplies, her young face set with determination that reminded Zethrak of her father, who had died in the crash. The girl had lost so much already, yet she remained unbroken. Humans possessed remarkable resilience for such fragile beings. As the sun reached its peak, the Vex arrived. There were 12 of them, armed with energy weapons and wearing battle armor that gleamed with a sickly green sheen. Their leader was a massive creature with scarred hide and cold yellow eyes. Zethrak could smell their malevolence even from his mountain perch. The battle was brief and brutal. The colonists fought bravely, but they were farmers and engineers, not soldiers. Within minutes, half of them lay dead or wounded. The survivors were forced to their knees in the colony's central square. The Vex leader spoke in broken standard, his voice like grinding stone. "We take what we want. You no resist, maybe some live." His laugh was a horrible sound that made Zethrak's scales bristle with disgust. The raiders began their systematic looting, stripping the colony of anything valuable. They showed particular interest in the young women and children. Zethrak knew what fate awaited them in the slave markets of the Outer Rim. Emma was pushed forward with the other children, her small hands bound behind her back. Even now, facing these monsters, she kept her chin raised in defiance. The Vex leader noticed her spirit and smiled with too many teeth. "This one has fire," he hissed, running a clawed finger along Emma's cheek. She flinched but didn't cry out. "She will bring good price." Marcus struggled against his bonds. "Leave her alone. Take me instead." The Vex leader's smile widened. "You no understand. We take all we want. But first," he drew a curved blade from his belt. "We have some fun." Zethrak felt something stir deep within his ancient heart, a feeling he hadn't experienced in centuries. These creatures dared to threaten an innocent child in his territory. The cosmic laws forbade interference, but those same laws had loopholes for creatures as old and powerful as dragons. If one looked carefully at the ancient texts, interference was only forbidden when dragons acted as dragons. But Zethrak was more than just a dragon. He was a being of the void, older than the stars themselves, and he had grown quite fond of the small human girl who drew pictures of dragons she'd never seen. The Vex leader raised his blade toward Emma's face, intending to mark her before the real torment began. That was when Zethrak made his decision. The cosmic laws could burn for all he cared. The Vex leader's blade caught the sunlight as he brought it closer to Emma's face. She closed her eyes, preparing for pain, but refused to give him the satisfaction of her tears. Around the square, the other colonists watched in helpless horror as their children faced unspeakable cruelty. "Please," Sarah whispered, her voice breaking. "She's just a child." The reptilian slaver laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Children make best slaves. They learn quick, break easy." He traced the blade's edge along Emma's jawline, drawing a thin line of blood. "This one she will learn pain first." Marcus roared and thrashed against his restraints, but two Vex warriors held him down. "I'll kill you. I'll kill every last one of you." "You kill nothing, human trash." The leader backhanded Marcus across the face, splitting his lip. "You watch. You see what happens when you resist Vex." Emma's eyes snapped open, blazing with fury. Despite her bound hands and the blade at her throat, she spat at the creature holding her. "My daddy always said bullies are just scared little animals pretending to be strong." The Vex leader's expression darkened. The casual cruelty in his eyes transformed into something far more dangerous, genuine anger. He grabbed Emma by her red hair and yanked her head back, exposing her throat. Smart mouth will learn silence. He positioned the blade at the base of her neck. "We start with tongue, yes? Then fingers. Then we see how brave little human really is." High above on his mountain perch, Zethrak felt ancient fury kindle in his chest like a star going supernova. The dragon's massive form began to shimmer as cosmic energy built within his scales. 3,000 years of enforced neutrality warred against an emotion he had thought long dead: protective rage. The Vex leader pressed the blade deeper, and Emma finally cried out as it bit into her skin. That sound, that small cry of pain from an innocent child, shattered the last of Zethrak's restraint. But the dragon was cunning. He had not survived 3 millennia by being reckless. If he acted as a dragon, the cosmic courts would strip him of his power and bind him for eternity. However, there were other ways to interpret the ancient laws. Zethrak began to shift his form, drawing upon powers he hadn't used in over 1,000 years. His massive dragon shape rippled and changed, scales becoming skin, wings folding into arms, claws reshaping into hands. Within moments, a tall humanoid figure stood where the dragon had been. He appeared as a human male in his 30s with dark hair and eyes that held depths of starlight. His clothes were simple, worn leather and dark cloth that would not seem out of place in any frontier settlement. To all outward appearances, he was just another human, but appearances could be deceiving. The Vex leader was enjoying his work now, making small cuts along Emma's arms while she sobbed. "This is just beginning, little human. We have many hours before ship arrives. Stop." The voice rang across the valley like thunder. Every head turned toward the newcomer striding down the mountain path. To the humans, he looked like a survivor from another crashed ship or perhaps a hermit who had witnessed the attack. The Vex saw only another human to torment, another one. The leader laughed, gesturing for his warriors to surround the stranger. "Today is good day for hunting." Zethrak, now wearing human form, continued his steady approach. His face was calm, almost serene, but his eyes burned with stellar fire. "Release the child, or what, human?" The leader sneered, pressing his blade deeper into Emma's neck. More blood flowed, staining her torn shirt. "You think you can stop Vex? You think you can save anyone?" The disguised dragon smiled, and there was nothing human in that expression. "I think you're about to learn why some worlds have myths about sleeping giants." 3 Vex warriors rushed him with energy weapons raised. Zethrak moved with fluid grace that seemed almost lazy, until you realized he had somehow stepped between all 3 blasts without appearing to hurry. His hand shot out and grasped the nearest warrior by the throat. The Vex weighed 300 pounds and wore armor that could stop plasma bolts. Zethrak lifted him one-handed as if he weighed nothing at all. The armor crumpled like paper under his fingers. "Impossible!" The warrior gasped before his neck snapped with a sound like breaking kindling. The other 2 fired again, point-blank range. The energy bolt struck Zethrak's center mass and simply vanished, absorbed into his human disguise like water into sand. He backhanded one warrior hard enough to send him flying 30 feet into a boulder. The wet crunch when he hit suggested he wouldn't be getting up. The third warrior dropped his weapon and ran. Zethrak let him go. Let him spread word of what happened here. Let the Vex know that some prey fought back. The leader still held Emma, but his confident smirk had faded. "What are you?" "I'm someone who's grown tired of watching children suffer." Zethrak took another step forward, and the ground trembled slightly under his feet. "Last chance. Release her." Instead, the Vex leader tightened his grip and raised the blade. "She dies first." That was his final mistake. Time seemed to slow as the Vex leader's blade began its downward arc toward Emma's throat. The child's eyes widened, not with fear now, but with something approaching wonder as she looked at the strange man who had come to help them. Zethrak moved faster than thought itself. One moment he stood 20 feet away. The next, his hand closed around the Vex leader's wrist, stopping the blade mere inches from Emma's skin. The force of his grip was carefully controlled, enough to shatter bones without killing instantly. The reptilian warrior screamed as his wrist crumpled like wet clay. The blade fell from nerveless fingers, clattering on the stone ground. Zethrak's other hand gently but firmly pulled Emma away from her captor, setting her safely behind him. "Run to the others, little star," he said softly, using a term of endearment from his homeworld that translated roughly to precious light. Emma looked up at him with those wide, trusting eyes. "Are you going to save everyone?" "Yes." The simple word carried the weight of absolute certainty. She nodded once and ran toward the huddled group of colonists, her small hand still bound but her spirit unbroken. The Vex leader cradled his mangled wrist, yellow eyes blazing with pain and fury. "You broke my arm." That was a warning. Zethrak's voice remained calm, conversational. "For what you did to the child, the price will be much higher." The remaining Vex warriors, 8 of them now, formed a loose circle around the disguised dragon. Their leader snarled orders in their native tongue, and they opened fire simultaneously. Energy bolts from 8 different directions converged on Zethrak's position. The colonists cried out, certain they were about to witness their savior's death. Instead, they saw something impossible. The energy blast struck Zethrak and simply stopped, hanging in the air around him like deadly fireflies frozen in amber. For a moment, the entire square was illuminated by the crackling light of suspended plasma bolts. Then Zethrak gestured casually with one hand, and the energy redirected itself back at its sources. 8 Vex warriors died in the space of a heartbeat, struck down by their own weapons. Their armor offered no protection against the redirected plasma that had been meant for their target. The air filled with the acrid smell of burnt metal and worse things. The leader stared at the bodies of his squad, then back at the human who couldn't possibly be human. What are you?" Zethrak walked slowly toward him, each step deliberate and measured. The ground continued to tremble slightly, as if the planet itself recognized the presence of something ancient and powerful. "I told you already. I'm someone who's tired of watching children suffer." He reached down and picked up the fallen blade, the same weapon that had drawn Emma's blood. "But perhaps I should be more specific." The Vex leader tried to back away, but his legs wouldn't obey him. Some primal part of his brain recognized a predator far beyond his ability to fight or flee from. "I am old," Zethrak continued, examining the blade with academic interest. "Older than your species. Older than most civilizations in this galaxy. I have watched empires rise and fall, seen stars born and die, witnessed the dance of creation and destruction across cosmic ages." The blade began to glow in his grip, heating to molten temperatures without affecting his skin. "In all that time, I have been bound by laws older than worlds, laws that prevented me from interfering in the affairs of younger species. I was an observer, a witness, nothing more." The leader finally found his voice. "Please." "I surrender. Take prisoners. That is civilized way." Zethrak's laugh was genuinely amused. "Civilized? You who tortures children for pleasure speak to me of civilization?" The molten blade dripped fire onto the stone ground. "Tell me, creature, did you show mercy when that little girl begged you to stop?" Silence. "Did you consider civilization when you planned to sell children into slavery?" More silence, broken only by the sound of liquid metal hitting stone. "Then why should I extend to you courtesies you have never offered others?" Marcus found his voice. "Wait." The colony leader struggled to his feet, still bound but determined to speak. "Don't kill him out of anger. That makes you like them." Zethrak turned to look at the human man, curious. You would spare the creature who tortured your people? Who hurt that child? No, Marcus said firmly. I want him dead. But not like this, not out of rage. He straightened despite his injuries. Kill him because justice demands it. Because leaving him alive means more children will suffer in the future. The disguised dragon considered this carefully. Humans were indeed fascinating creatures. Even in their darkest moments, some held onto principles that elevated them above mere survival. Wise words, Zethrak agreed. He looked back at the Vex leader who had fallen to his knees. Very well. Not rage, then. Justice. The molten blade reformed in his grip, now shaped like a sword of pure starfire. For the crime of preying upon the innocent, Zethrak intoned, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in the bones of everyone present. For the torture of children, for the violation of sanctuary, I sentence you to death. The Vex leader opened his mouth to plead or threaten or bargain. He never got the chance to speak. The sword of starfire moved in a perfect arc, too fast for the eye to follow. The Vex leader's head separated from his shoulders cleanly, cauterized instantly by the supernatural heat. His body collapsed backward, yellow blood pooling on the stone ground. Zethrak allowed the molten weapon to dissipate, the stellar fire fading back into whatever cosmic realm had birthed it. The sudden silence in the colony square was broken only by the distant sound of wind through the mountains. The colonists stared at their rescuer with a mixture of awe, gratitude, and healthy fear. They had just witnessed something that defied every law of physics they understood. A single man had destroyed an entire squad of armed raiders using abilities that seemed almost godlike. Sarah was the first to find her voice. Emma's hurt. She needs medical attention. Zethrak turned toward the child who was sitting against a building wall while Henrik worked to free her bonds with a salvaged knife. Blood still trickled from the cuts on her neck and arms, but her eyes remained bright with curiosity rather than trauma. May I? Zethrak asked, kneeling beside her. Emma nodded, studying his face with the directness only children possessed. You're not really human, are you? The disguised dragon smiled, genuinely charmed by her perception. What makes you say that? Humans can't catch laser blasts and throw them back. And your eyes, she tilted her head thoughtfully. They look like the sky at night when all the stars are out. Henrik paused in his work on her restraints. Emma, perhaps we shouldn't. It's all right, Zethrak interrupted gently. He placed his hands over Emma's wounds and a soft golden light emanated from his palms. The colonists gasped as they watched the cuts heal completely, leaving behind only smooth, unmarked skin. She's right. I'm not human. The revelation caused a stir among the survivors, but Emma just grinned. I knew it. Are you an alien? A robot? Oh. Her eyes widened with sudden inspiration. Are you a dragon? Zethrak nearly laughed at her enthusiasm. 3,000 years of carefully maintained secrets and a 12-year-old girl had deduced his nature in minutes. Why would you think that? Because dragons are supposed to be really old and really powerful and really good at protecting treasure. Emma's logic was unassailable in its simplicity. And people are treasure too, right? The most important kind. This time Zethrak did laugh, a sound like distant thunder on a summer evening. You are a remarkable child, Emma Caldris. How do you know my last name? She asked, then immediately answered her own question. Oh, right. Super powerful dragon powers. Marcus stepped forward, his expression serious but respectful. Whatever you are, we owe you our lives. Our children's lives. How can we repay such a debt? There is no debt, Zethrak replied, rising to his feet. I acted according to my own conscience, not out of obligation to you. But you saved us. You risked yourself for strangers. The dragon considered how to explain concepts of cosmic law and ancient duty to humans who lived for mere decades. I have watched your species for some time. Humans possess something rare in the galaxy, the ability to remain compassionate even in the face of cruelty. You choose to be better than your circumstances demand. He gestured toward the Vex bodies scattered around the square. These creatures chose differently. They embraced cruelty as strength, fear as control. In the end, that choice sealed their fate. Sarah approached cautiously, her medical training overriding her caution. Are there more of them coming? Should we evacuate? The one who fled will return to his ship and report what happened here. The Vex are many things, but they are not stupid. They will mark this world as dangerous and avoid it. Zethrak's expression grew cold. Of course, that doesn't mean they'll stop preying on others. A heavy silence fell over the group as they absorbed the implications. Somewhere in the galaxy, other colonies would face the same horror they had just escaped. It was Emma who broke the silence. "So why don't you stop all of them?" The adults shifted uncomfortably, but Zethrak took the question seriously. "Because I am bound by laws older than worlds. I can act to defend when I witness injustice, but I cannot hunt down every predator in the galaxy. That seems like a stupid law," Emma declared with the blunt honesty of childhood. Sometimes wisdom can appear stupid to those who haven't lived long enough to see its purpose. But even as he said it, Zethrak wondered if the child might have a point. How many more innocents would suffer while he remained bound by cosmic protocol? Henrik finished cutting Emma's bonds and helped her to her feet. "What happens now? Do you stay with us?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Zethrak could feel the weight of 47 human lives looking to him for guidance, for protection, for hope. They had lost half their number to the Vex attack. They were farmers and engineers trying to survive on a hostile world with insufficient resources. They needed help. And for the first time in 3,000 years, Zethrak found himself wanting to give it. "I should go," he said finally. "My presence here complicates things you don't understand." Emma stepped forward and took his hand in both of hers. Her grip was surprisingly strong for such a small person. "But you don't want to go, do you?" Once again, the child's perception cut straight to the heart of the matter. Zethrak looked down at her upturned face, at the trust and hope shining in her eyes, and felt something shift deep within his ancient soul. Perhaps some laws were meant to be broken. Emma's small hand in his felt warm and surprisingly strong. Zethrak looked down at the determined 12-year-old and saw something that reminded him why he had first fallen in love with observing humanity centuries ago. In her eyes burned the same fierce light that had driven humans to reach for the stars despite being bound to a single world. "You're right," he admitted quietly. "I don't want to go." Marcus stepped closer, his voice cautious but hopeful. "Then don't stay with us. Help us build something better here." "You don't understand the complications," Zethrak began, but Emma interrupted him. "Adults always say that when they're scared to try something new," she said with the brutal honesty that only children could get away with. "What complications? You're super strong, you can heal people, and you make bad guys go away. Those all sound like good things to me." Sarah nodded in agreement. "Emma's right. We've lost 23 people today. We barely have enough expertise left to keep the basic systems running. If you can help us survive and rebuild, what does it matter what cosmic laws say?" The question struck Zethrak like a physical blow. What indeed? He had spent 3 millennia following rules written by beings who viewed mortal races as little more than interesting insects. Meanwhile, real people suffered and died while he maintained his careful neutrality. "The cosmic courts have ways of enforcing their will," he said slowly. "If they discover what I've done here, the consequences could be severe. For you or for us?" Marcus asked. "Primarily for me. They would strip me of my power and imprison me for violating the non-interference directive." Emma tugged on his hand. "But they can't take away what you've already done, right? We're already saved. So even if they catch you later, you still did something good." The logic was simple, childlike, and utterly devastating to 3,000 years of careful rationalization. Zethrak had convinced himself that following the law was more important than acting on conscience. But this little girl had just pointed out the fundamental flaw in that thinking. Good deeds were their own justification, regardless of consequences. Besides, Henrik added with a wry smile, "Seems to me that any court worth respecting would applaud someone for protecting children from slavers." Zethrak felt something loosen in his chest, a knot of obligation and fear that had constrained him for millennia. These humans were right. Some things mattered more than rules. "Very well," he said, and the words felt like stepping off a cliff into free fall. "I'll stay." The cheer that went up from the colonists was spontaneous and heartfelt. Even the adults who had been most wary of him smiled with relief and gratitude. Emma actually jumped up and hugged him around the waist, a gesture so natural and innocent that it nearly brought tears to his ancient eyes. "This is going to be amazing," she declared. "Can you teach me to do the glowy healing thing?" "And can you fly?" "I bet you can fly." "Emma," Sarah laughed. "Give the man a chance to breathe." But Zethrak was smiling now, truly smiling for the first time in centuries. "Actually, I think teaching might be an excellent way to spend my time here." Over the following days, the colony transformed in ways both large and small. Zethrak's presence alone served as a powerful deterrent to any other raiders who might consider targeting the settlement. But more than that, his knowledge and abilities allowed the colonists to not just survive, but to thrive. He helped them redesign their power systems using principles of energy manipulation that wouldn't be discovered by human science for another 1,000 years. He taught them techniques for purifying water and enriching soil that turned their struggling farm plots into abundant gardens. Most importantly, he shared knowledge of defensive systems that could protect them without requiring advanced technology. Emma became his unofficial apprentice and constant companion. She had an insatiable curiosity about everything he could teach her, from basic energy manipulation to the history of galactic civilizations. Her questions often led to insights that surprised even Zethrak. If dragons are supposed to be neutral observers, she asked one evening, as they sat watching the sunset from his favorite cliff, why do all the stories make you the heroes who save people? Zethrak considered the question seriously. Perhaps because the stories are written by those who believe in what dragons could be, rather than what they are required to be. Or maybe, Emma suggested with the wisdom that sometimes came from the mouths of children, the stories are true and the laws are wrong. 3 weeks after the Vex attack, long-range sensors detected an approaching ship. The colonists gathered in the square, some fearful that more raiders had come, others confident that their protector would handle any threat. The ship that landed was unlike any vessel in the local databases. Its hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, and strange symbols covered its surface in patterns that hurt to look at directly. When the airlock opened, 3 figures emerged that made even Zethrak tense with concern. They appeared humanoid but wrong, as if someone had tried to create people from memory rather than observation. Their movements were too fluid, their proportions slightly off, their eyes containing depths that suggested intelligence vast and alien, cosmic arbitrators, the enforcers of universal law. The lead figure spoke in a voice that bypassed the ears and resonated directly in the mind. Dragon Zethrak, you stand accused of violating the cosmic accords of non-interference. Surrender yourself for judgment. Emma stepped forward before anyone could stop her, placing herself between the arbitrators and her dragon friend. He saved us. He protected children from monsters. If that's against your law, then your law is stupid. The lead arbitrator looked down at her with those impossible eyes. Young human, you do not understand the implications of what you defend. I understand that good people should help when bad people hurt others. Emma shot back, her chin raised in defiance. And if your rules say different, then maybe you need better rules. Behind her, the entire colony moved to form a protective wall between the arbitrators and Zethrak. They were farmers and engineers facing cosmic powers beyond their comprehension. But they stood firm anyway because sometimes, standing up for what's right matters more than survival. The arbitrators had come expecting to find a rogue dragon guilty of unlawful interference. Instead, they found something far more dangerous. A community willing to fight for their protector, and a protector willing to face cosmic justice for their sake. The standoff in the colony square stretched taut as a wire about to snap. 47 humans faced 3 cosmic arbitrators, beings whose power could unmake entire star systems with a thought, yet not one colonist stepped backward. Emma stood at the front of the group, her small frame dwarfed by the impossible entities before her, but her voice carried clearly in the crystalline air. You want him? You'll have to go through all of us first. The lead arbitrator tilted its head with mechanical precision. Your loyalty is noted, but irrelevant. Cosmic law supersedes local attachment. Does it? Zethrak stepped around the protective wall of humans, his own voice calm but carrying undertones of power that made the air shimmer. I've been thinking about that, actually. The arbitrators focused their attention on him with the intensity of black holes drawing in light. Dragon Zethrak, you will surrender for processing. I have questions first. Zethrak moved with deliberate slowness, his hands visible and non-threatening, but his presence somehow filling the entire square. The cosmic accords forbid interference in the development of younger species, correct? Correct. And the penalty for violation is imprisonment and power stripping. Also correct. Zethrak nodded thoughtfully. Tell me, arbitrator, what specific interference am I accused of? The middle figure consulted something that might have been a device or might have been a manifestation of pure information. You intervened in a conflict between Vex raiders and human colonists, resulting in the deaths of 11 Vex warriors and the alteration of this colony's natural development trajectory. I see. And when exactly did this interference occur? Planetary, standard time, 14:27 hours, day 43 of local cycle. Emma frowned and whispered to Marcus. That's when the bad lizards were here, but he didn't show up until later. Zethrak heard her and smiled slightly. Precisely. Arbitrator, your records show that the Vex attack began at 13:45 hours. I did not manifest in the combat zone until 14:52. What happened during that intervening time? For the first time, the arbitrators showed something like uncertainty. The lead figure's form flickered slightly. Explain your point. During that hour and 7 minutes, I observed the attack from my mountain lair in full dragon form. I watched the Vex kill colonists, wound others, and begin torturing children. According to your own laws, observation is permitted, even observation of injustice. The second arbitrator spoke for the first time. Observation that leads to action violates the spirit of the Accords. Does it? Zethrak's eyes began to glow with stellar fire. Or does inaction, in the face of witnessed atrocity, violate something far more fundamental? He gestured toward Emma, who still stood defiantly between him and the cosmic enforcers. This child was being tortured by creatures who planned to sell her into sexual slavery. I observed this. I witnessed it. And according to your accords, I was supposed to do nothing. The temperature in the square began to drop as Zethrak's control over his human disguise started to slip. Power radiated from him in waves that made the air itself thicken. But here's what you missed in your cosmic calculations, arbitrator. Here's what your perfect laws failed to account for. His voice grew deeper, harmonics of draconic power bleeding through. Some actions become inevitable the moment they are witnessed. Emma looked up at him with wonder and growing understanding. You couldn't not help us, could you? No, little star. I could not. Zethrak faced the arbitrators directly, and now his human disguise was failing completely. Dragon scales flickered in and out of visibility along his arms and neck. His eyes burned with the light of dying stars. You speak of interference, but I say, I acted according to a law, older and more fundamental than your accords. The law that says those with power have responsibility to those without it. The law that says evil unchallenged becomes evil endorsed. The lead arbitrator's form solidified, becoming more threatening. You quote philosophy. We enforce reality. Cosmic order requires balance, Zethrak interrupted, his voice now carrying the full weight of his true nature. But there is no balance when predators are allowed to hunt the innocent while protectors are bound to watch. There is only the strong devouring the weak, while those who could intervene hide behind bureaucracy. Marcus found his voice. What happens if they take you? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Zethrak looked at the man who had become his friend, at the community that had welcomed him, at the child who had seen through his disguise to his heart. Then I face whatever consequences come, he said simply. But my choice remains unchanged. I would do the same thing again. Emma stepped closer to him, her small hand finding his. We all would. Every single one of us would choose to save someone who needed help, even if it got us in trouble. The third arbitrator, who had remained silent until now, suddenly spoke. Interesting. All of you claim you would choose protection over law? The answer came as a chorus from 47 human voices. Yes. The arbitrator looked at its companions. Some form of communication passed between them, faster than thought, deeper than words. Finally, the lead figure addressed Zethrak again. Dragon, you claim your actions were inevitable upon witnessing injustice? I do. And humans, it turned to address the colonists. You claim you would make the same choice given similar circumstances? We would, Sarah answered for all of them. Then we have a problem. The arbitrator's form began to shift, becoming somehow more present, more real. Because according to our observations, this pattern is not isolated to this incident or this world. Emma's eyes widened with understanding that was too mature for her years. There are others like him, aren't there? Others who are tired of watching bad things happen? The arbitrator nodded slowly. Across the galaxy, dragons and other cosmic entities bound by the non-interference directive are beginning to act as you have acted, Zethrak. The accords are failing because conscience is proving stronger than law. A terrible silence fell over the square as the implications sank in. So what happens now? Marcus asked quietly. The lead arbitrator's answer would reshape the cosmic order itself. The lead arbitrator stood motionless for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Around the square, 47 humans held their breath while a dragon waited to learn his fate. The very air seemed to crystallize with tension as cosmic forces weighed decisions that would ripple across galaxies. Finally, the entity spoke. The cosmic accords of non-interference were created 12 million years ago by a council of elder species who had witnessed the destruction that comes when powerful beings impose their will upon developing civilizations. Its voice carried the weight of eons. The intention was noble, to allow younger races to find their own paths without coercion or control. Emma shifted impatiently beside Zethrak. But, the arbitrator's impossible gaze fixed on her. But the council failed to account for something that humans have demonstrated repeatedly throughout their brief existence. They failed to plan for the possibility that younger species might develop faster than anticipated. That they might become wise enough to distinguish between interference and protection. Zethrak felt a flutter of hope in his chest. What are you saying? I am saying that 47 humans just stood between a cosmic arbitrator and a cosmic entity, ready to fight and die for a principle they believe in. That level of moral conviction suggests a species that has evolved beyond the need for total protection. The second arbitrator stepped forward. More significantly, you have demonstrated something we thought impossible. A dragon who could act in direct violation of cosmic law without becoming corrupted by power or conquered by rage. Your intervention was surgical, proportional, and motivated purely by protection of innocence. Marcus found his voice. So he's not in trouble? On the contrary, the third arbitrator said. He has become the solution to a problem we have been struggling with for millennia. The lead figure gestured, and the air above the square shimmered. Images appeared, scenes from across the galaxy showing various cosmic entities frozen in similar moral dilemmas. Dragons watching slavers attack peaceful worlds, ancient watchers observing genocides, guardians bound by law while innocents suffered. The non-interference directive is failing because it has become interference through inaction. Evil flourishes when good beings are prevented from acting. The arbitrator's form grew more solid, more present. We have been conducting this investigation across multiple sectors. What we discovered is that species develop faster when protected by those who care about their welfare, not slower. Emma grinned up at Zethrak. So you're actually helping us grow up better by helping us? Indeed, young human. Your species has shown remarkable moral development under Dragon Zethrak's guidance. You have learned to stand for principles even against overwhelming odds. You have developed loyalty, courage, and ethical reasoning that many species take centuries to achieve. Zethrak felt the cosmic bonds that had constrained him for 3,000 years beginning to dissolve. Are you saying the accords are being changed? We are saying the accords are being replaced. The lead arbitrator raised what might have been a hand. By order of the Cosmic Court, effective immediately, the non-interference directive is suspended pending implementation of the new Protective Intervention Protocol. The words hit like a thunderbolt. Around the square, the colonists erupted in cheers, but Zethrak was too stunned to react. 3 millennia of enforced neutrality ended in a single pronouncement. Under the new protocol, the second arbitrator continued, cosmic entities are authorized and encouraged to intervene when witnessing genuine injustice, provided such intervention follows established ethical guidelines and does not impose unwanted government or cultural change upon the protected species. Emma tugged on Zethrak's hand. That means you can help other kids like me, right? Other places where bad things are happening? The dragon looked down at her, then out at the faces of the humans who had stood with him against cosmic authority itself. They had risked everything for a principle, for a friend, for what they believed was right. Yes, little star. It means I can help others. And you'll come back to visit us? Zethrak knelt down to her level, placing his hands gently on her shoulders. Emma, this is my home now. These people are my family. I'm not going anywhere unless you all decide you're tired of having a dragon around. The cheer that went up could probably be heard from orbit. The lead arbitrator began to fade, its mission complete. Dragon Zethrak, you are hereby appointed as Regional Protection Coordinator for this sector. Your authority extends to intervention in cases of slavery, genocide, torture of non-combatants, and similar atrocities. Use your power wisely. I will. And Zethrak meant it with every fiber of his ancient soul. As the arbitrators departed, their impossible ship lifting silently into the sky, Emma looked up at her dragon friend with sparkling eyes. So what happens now? Zethrak smiled, feeling lighter than he had in centuries. Now we build something wonderful. A place where children can grow up safe, where families can thrive, where anyone who needs help can find it. Marcus stepped forward, offering his hand. Partners? The dragon shook it firmly. Partners. As the sun set over the colony that evening, the residents gathered for their customary meal together. But tonight felt different. Tonight felt like the beginning of something extraordinary. Emma sat beside Zethrak as always, but now she carried a small notebook where she was carefully writing down everything he taught her about cosmic law, energy manipulation, and the responsibilities that came with power. Are you really going to teach me to be like you? She asked. I'm going to teach you to be like you, Zethrak replied, but better, stronger, wiser, ready to protect others the way I protected you. She nodded seriously, then brightened with sudden inspiration. Can we start with flying lessons tomorrow? Zethrak laughed, the sound echoing off the mountains like distant thunder. Tomorrow, little star. Tomorrow we begin everything. Above them, the stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, but something fundamental had changed in the cosmic order. Across the galaxy, other dragons were receiving new orders. Other protectors were being unleashed. Other children would grow up safer because conscience had finally triumphed over bureaucracy. And on a small colony world in an unremarkable star system, a 12-year-old girl with red hair and freckles fell asleep next to her dragon friend, dreaming of all the people they would save together. The age of interference through inaction was over. The age of protection had begun.